In this video, I want to cover the AlterTable command. So after a table has been created, you decide I need to add a column or drop a column, I need to change a data type. Well, there's a way to alter an already existing table. But I'll also show you a little trick. If you have a table created, so I'll go ahead and rerun these three commands as a script. I'll go ahead and run them. And looking through my output here, it looks like everything went okay. So I'll refresh the navigator pane. There's the employee table. You can right click on a table and there's copy to clipboard, and there's all these commands here that will create a script that allows you to insert, update, delete. Well, in this case, I'm going to copy to the clipboard to create statement script. So now it's in my clipboard. I'm going to open up a new query tab, and I'm going to Control V, and there is my create table statement. Now, because it was generated by MySQL, they put that, it's not a single quote, but that little indicator there on all their column names. You don't have to do that, but that's how you can tell a script was generated by MySQL. And they put this word default all the time. They put the word null all the time. But nonetheless, this is the exact script of that table. Notice also they'll put in the engine equal NODB, auto increment equal 2, and the default character set is UTF-8. Our script, we didn't actually do that, but it's grabbing these default values from our server settings. So the issue becomes, why alter the table when I can just have MySQL generate the create table script, drop the table, make my changes in this script, and then rerun it? Well, actually you can, unless your table already has employees in it. If the table is full of data, I'm not going to want to drop it in order to fix one of the issues with the columns. So if you already have data, that's when it's better to use an alter table statement rather than rerunning just the create table script. So let's say, here's my scenario, I want to add a column to my employee table. All right, so here's what you do. You type alter table, you say which table you want to alter, and then there's all these different things you can do to alter a table. So let me run over to, I think it's this one. This is the syntax for alter table. Remember, it's DDL, data definition. I grabbed this, pasted it over here, but I cleaned it up a little bit to only those things that might be useful to us in our class. And so alter table, table name, and then it goes, okay, what's your spec? Well, we can add optional word column, and then you're going to give it the column name and the definition being the data type. We will mess with this first or after. I can say where to place it. I can add an index, add a constraint. We can add foreign keys, which we haven't done yet, but the constraint being like a unique constraint. We can also change a column, which allows us to rename it. We can modify an already existing column. I can drop a column, drop primary key. So I think you kind of get the idea of the kinds of things you can do with alter table. Remember that pipe means or in that case. And you can make more than one change with one alter table statement. In fact, we'll run back and actually do one. I want to add two columns. So I'm going to say alter table employee, add column, and then city. And now you have to give it the data type. Now you could say this is a keyword after. What column do I want it after? So I want it after the last name. If you don't use that, it will just put it at the end of the list. It will, when you go to look over here at all your columns, city would just end up down here underneath social security number. Now, because I want to add two columns, rather than run two alter table statements with add column, I'm just going to run one statement, but I put a comma after the first change, and I'll say add column again. I'm going to add state char2, and again, I can use either, I could say, oh, I want this to be the first column, or I could put it after something, or I could just not have it on there. In this case, let's go ahead and make it after city. And I need to get rid of this comment. And of course I need to put my semicolon at the end of my statement. Let's go ahead and run now. So hit the execute command, and it looks like, oh, I have to scroll down or move up. The AlterTable statement worked. So if I were to refresh here, now I have city and state. City went after last name and state went after city. Now in the same way that we've just added a column, what if we want to drop a column out of our table? We decide we don't need it anymore. Simple, alter table, give the table name, and now there's one for drop column. Be careful, remember the idea is I already have a table full of data. So if you drop a column, you're also going to drop that data. It will be gone. So right over here, let me hit refresh. There's my table. Here's all my columns. There's SSN. For whatever reason, we don't want to store that anymore. So I can run this command. It did it. And so now that column has been dropped. If I refresh, no more SSN. But what's also scary, if I run over, let me start a new tab, and just select the top 1,000 rows, all of a sudden there's John Zimmerman, and what I used to have his social security number I no longer have. So it deleted that data. And of course these are the two columns I just added. Notice they have null markers in them because I haven't populated that data. Later in the quarter we'll learn the update statement where I can update his record to add more data. So next thing, oh shoot, I need to modify the L name column because I just recognized this should be L name or last name. The last name column because it used to be 50 and now I need to make it longer because of whatever. I ran into somebody who's got more than 50 characters in their last name. I want to make this 100. So basically you can modify column. Alter table, modify column, and a lot of times you're changing the data type. Maybe you're going to make it not null instead of null. So those are the kind of modifications you can do with the modify column. Be careful about shortening your data type. So say going from varchar 50 to varchar 20. So it may truncate your data. So if you have a table full of data and you start modifying columns, be aware you could start ruining the data that exists in there. So alter table, run that, and now that column is going to be a varchar 100 and not null. Whereas before we hadn't specified a not null constraint. Moving down, there's another one. This gets a little confusing because there's modify column that we just played with. Well, there's change column. And so intuitively you're like, well, what's the difference between modify and change? It seems similar. Well, the difference is in MySQL, change allows you to give you the old column name and come up with a new column name. And at the same time, of course, then you got to give it the column definition, which would be the data type. And if you want to throw in a not null or something, you can do that right there. So in my example, I'm like, okay, instead of phone, right, we have a phone column. Well, I'm going to change it for whatever reason to primary phone. So I'm going to alter table employee change column, and just for consistency's sake, I'll make that a capital change column. Old, new, and don't forget to put your data type in this case right there. And also for consistency, I'll make that all caps. Okay, so now I'm going to change that column. Again, it worked successfully. If I refresh, all of a sudden the phone column is now called primary phone. All right, moving on to the next alter table statement, and that is maybe we want to add a constraint, such as a unique constraint. When I've originally created the table, I didn't make email unique. I have since added a lot of data, and now I want to make that change. So right here, we're just going to say add, and again, the keyword constraint. I like to name the constraints, and so then later I can refer to that name if I decide to drop it, which we'll do here in a second. So I can just run that command, and now I've added a unique constraint to the data. Or if you decide that you need to get rid of a constraint at some point, you can alter table, give it a name, drop constraint. So I can run that, and now we just took it back off again. Something I wanted to show you. Let me put it back on. Run this. I'll hit refresh. Remember, you can look at your constraints. It's under a column right here called indexes. When I originally created the table back up here, I had a primary key. So that's one of the indexes. And then when I just ran the alter table, it added the unique email. And then, of course, if I run down here and drop it, it'll go away. So now that constraint's gone, and you just see the primary key. All right, the last alter table statement I want to cover, and that's the ability to rename a table. So I decide at my company we don't want to call people employees anymore. There are associates, and so I can alter table rename to associates. So when I run that, and now refresh, now the table is called associate. So basically that's it for alter table, although I do want to run back up and mention one thing. When you modify a column, so a lot of times, remember the difference between modify and change is about renaming it. Change column allows you to rename, modify doesn't. So I'm going to take that column. A lot of times it's for changing the data type, but while you're up there you can also add the not null constraint. I could put a unique on here. I could also put a default value. Now of course default last name doesn't make sense, but just to make a point I could put a default value on here like that. So as long as you're modifying a column, you can make some of these changes in addition to just changing the data type. One other one I didn't show you, there's change a column, modify a column, and if we run back, there's also alter a column. That's only used for changing the default value. I don't know why you'd use it. I guess at that point I would just go with modify and then just redefine the column and add the default at that point. But if you're not messing with the data type or anything else, I guess this would be a quick way of just saying, oops, I want to change the default alter column last name with the default last name to a default of L name or whatever. So that's one other option right there. In my experience with students doing the alter table command, a lot of times they will modify column last name, and the first thing, I don't know why, first thing they forget is to put a data type afterwards, and then you'll get an error at that point. But for the most part, it's easy to use, and just to remember, it's used most often when you already have data in the table, and you just want to make some changes without losing your data at the same time.